Oh, it's so great to be back in Bethel again. You know, this church is where my sister Connie and I were raised up, where my dad was a deacon and superintendent of Sunday school, and I played the piano. Now, there's nobody here that can remember that except Carol, maybe, and Francis. So it's been many, many years ago. But I want to share with you my journey that I've been on and what God has done in my life.
Amen.
On June the 14th of last year, I had a seizure, and Jim called an ambulance, picked me up, and he asked them to take me to Madison Hospital, where my granddaughter is the RN charge nurse of ICU. But I had another seizure, so we got diverted to Huntsville Hospital, where they started IVs trying to get my blood pressure stabilized as it was out of control. They did an MRI of my brain, and I was diagnosed with a condition called PRESS, which as a nurse myself, I'd never heard of that. But what it amounted to is encephalopathy of the brain, swelling of the brain. I was admitted to ICU, where I stayed for 2 months. It was a long journey, but after about 10 days, my breathing became worse. They had put me on 3 different kinds of anti-seizure medicine, IV of course. And of course, my son, my oldest son, he had helped get me through nursing school. He helped a wife get through nursing school. He helped a daughter get through nursing school. So he knew just enough to be dangerous. And if he didn't know it, he would Google it. So he decided I was on too much medicine because I could not be stimulated. So he called my granddaughter, and she in turn called a hospitalist that she knew very well and had worked with. And he said, well, actually, you know, that's a lot of medicine. But I hate to go against a neurologist's orders, but I can do it. He said, so let me come to the hospital. He came to the hospital, and he slowly decreased my medicine. But my daughter-in-law asked him, she said, how long will you be her doctor? Because, you know, hospital, it just rotates every 3 or 4 days. He said, as long as she's in this hospital, she will be my patient. I owe him a lot of gratitude. He came every day, every single day to see me. After I'd been there about 11 days, my breathing became so bad that they had to put me on a ventilator. I was on the ventilator for 2 weeks. Now, most of what I'm telling you is what I've been told, because I don't remember much that went on. I was on the ventilator for about 2 weeks, and they decided that maybe I could breathe on my own, so they put me on a BiPAP machine. That didn't work. So after being off of it for about 10 or 11 days, the neurosurgeon told my husband, he said, our pulmonologist, the lung doctor, told my husband, he said, there's no use in putting her back on the ventilator. He said, because she's now developed pneumonia and got MRSA in her lungs. And anyway, the hospitalist then talked to Jim, and he said what they wanted to do is put me on a palliative care unit and call hospice. And Jill was not ready for that. My family was not ready for that. I don't know what I would have done during this time without my family and God, because they saw me through this. So the hospitalist told Jim, he says, we'll do what you want us to do, Jim, but I don't think that she's got much of a chance. And Jim says, I want to try her one more time, give her one more chance. So back on the ventilator we go, back on the ventilator for another couple of weeks, and they hit me hard with antibiotics, and I was anemic, so I had 7 units of blood during this time. Well, they finally, I was started coming around, and I know that it was because of the prayers that had gone up for me.
Amen.
The prayers from here, the prayers from all over. I had hundreds of people praying for me. And my family had been so dedicated to stand by me. Well, I finally come off the ventilator. I was breathing on my own. I was doing pretty good, but I couldn't remember anything. I didn't know my name. I was so mixed up. They'd ask me my name. I couldn't tell them. They'd ask me what year it was, and I'd always tell them 21. And they'd say, well, you're getting close. They'd ask me who the President of the United States was, and you know, I could always tell them Biden. I don't know why, but anyway, it was always Biden. Well, after they wanted to do a permanent trach also, and they wanted to do a permanent feeding tube, as I had a feeding tube in. And Jim said, no. Anyway, coming off the ventilator the second time, I began to come around, so they started talking about rehab. Of course, I wanted to come home, but my son told me real quick, you can't go home, which I knew I couldn't. But Jim wanted me to go to Encompass in Huntsville, but they evaluated me and wouldn't take me. They said I was too weak, that I couldn't stand up to their protocol. So we decided to come back to Restore, across from the hospital, the rehab across from the hospital. I thought, well, I've been there before, so it won't be too hard. Their exercises is nothing. Wrong. Wrong. I got there on Friday night. Monday morning, the therapist, which I had known, came in and she said, Anita, get up. We're going to get set on the side of the bed and we're going to get in a wheelchair. I said, woman, I've not sat on the side of the bed in over 2 months. And she said, well, you're going to today, but we're going to help you. And then she said, well, we're going to put you in a wheelchair. And she was 7 months pregnant. And she says, I'm going to get some help. We'll put you in a wheelchair. And I said, you're going to put me on the floor. And as you know, doctors and nurses are the worst patients in the world. And anyway, they helped me up and they set me in the wheelchair. And she said, we're going to the gym. We go to the gym. She rolls me up to the parallel bars. A nurse is standing behind me with my wheelchair. And she says, I'm going to put a belt on you and we're going to pull you up. And you hold on to the parallel bars. We're going to take a step or two. I took 2 steps, and that was all I could do. So she said, tomorrow we're going halfway of the bars, and the next day all the way. And she said, by next Friday, you're going to be on a walker. And I said, you're dreaming. So, but the next Friday, I was on my walker.
Amen.
So it was a hard go, but Jim I want you to know that the first month that I was in rehab, he fed me every bite that I ate because I couldn't hold a fork or a spoon. Oh, I could hold it a little bit, but food was all over the bed. I love my family so much. They have been so dedicated to me. And you know, my sister, she said she could never drive in Huntsville, but somehow or other she found her way 3 or 4 times a week. And my grandchildren were always there. But I want you to know one thing. There are 2 things in this life that are important. And the number one thing is your relationship with Jesus Christ.
Yes. Amen.
And the number 2 thing is your relationship with your family and your friends. I love you all, and God bless you all.